Look at Sri Lanka and indeed investment opportunities to be found there. Joining us now is Dulindra Fernando. He's Managing Director of Ceylon Asset Management. Dulindra, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Well, it's a country which is in the process of transformation right now, and you're there trying to leverage that.
Yes. Good morning, Rishaad. I think it's a very exciting time for Sri Lanka because the catalyst has been a reduction of interest rates by 400 basis points. The one-year rates, which were 12%, are now less than 8%. And at the same time, the market PE ratio, which is an attractive 11 times in an economy that's growing at 7% per annum for the next 5 years. So Ceylon Asset Management is now overweight on Sri Lankan equities from being neutral in the past.
Well, where are you actually finding opportunities then? And I would expect Ceylon Asset Management to be overweight Sri Lanka. It would be a bit disturbing if you weren't.
Well, funny enough, we have been neutral for the last 3 years because of the high interest rates. But what's different, where the growth is coming from, Rishaad, is that there's been significant new infrastructure development after a lapse of 30 years. And previously, all the GDP growth came from Colombo. But now, all 9 provinces in the country are kicking in. In fact, the northern province, the former war zone, has been the fastest growing province over the last 3 years. And the Colombo port already handles about 20% of India's transshipments. And Sri Lanka is now developing 2 more deep-sea harbors. And also, Colombo city has been developed into a garden city with lakes, cafes and gardens. And as a result of all this, the Indian tourists have discovered Sri Lanka for the first time and now represent the largest foreign tourists in Sri Lanka. And also Sri Lanka is trying to learn from Singapore and now building 3 new casinos. And also I think geopolitical tensions in Egypt and Thailand are also directing Western tourists to Sri Lanka. So all these factors are helping Sri Lanka grow very fast, and we expect the growth, GDP growth, to continue at above 7% for the next 5 years. Of course, we're coming from a 30-year civil war, and the infrastructure development and the reforms are now bearing fruit. So it's a very good time, very exciting time for equity markets in Sri Lanka.
Well, absolutely, Dulindra. So, how do you actually gain exposure? Is it purely through equities, and how well developed and deep are equity markets there in Colombo?
Well, Sri Lanka has a very vibrant equity market, and there are several exciting reforms in the pipeline this year, in fact. We are expecting exchange-traded funds to come to the market, a string of IPOs, and we are even working on REITs, introducing REITs to the market. And there have been a host of debt issues already listed last year. And most importantly, the Colombo Stock Exchange has introduced reforms to increase the free float, and which will improve the liquidity, which has been a constraint in the past. And there are several reforms in the mutual fund industry. In fact, Ceylon Asset Management is launching the first Sri Lankan dollar bond fund. And you can expect a few more products in the pipeline, which I can't talk about yet.
Well, Dulindra, you're there to try and get people more interested. I mean, you're there in Singapore trying to garner more interest in Sri Lanka. What sort of response are you getting?
I think we are getting a very good response, Rish, because the interest rates are very low in the developed markets. And Sri Lanka has proved in the last 4 years that it has been able to mitigate the risks that people were concerned about. And all the hard work of the infrastructure reforms are coming through now. And I think the world is also recognizing the fact that Sri Lanka is trying to progress in the areas where we had weaknesses before, and there's a northern provincial government in place today after a 30-year lapse. So finally the people in the northern province have a voice to represent them. And most importantly, there are freeways and a lot of infrastructure development plans to integrate the provinces into the economy. If you look at the Sri Lankan economy 10 years ago, almost 50% of the GDP came from the western province. And now that is down to 40%. And the northern province, the eastern province and the southern province are now leading the growth in Sri Lanka. And in fact, so we expect this momentum to continue because the growth is coming from the provinces, which are starting from a very low base.
Dulindra, great talking to you. Have a great trip there. Dulindra Fernando there from Ceylon Asset Management.